to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Welcome to Unsung, the people you don't know you know.
A show about the singers, actors, musicians, editors, agents, writers.
All the people that make the things you see on TV, watching the movies, hear on the radio. But you might not know them if they passed you on the street.
But you know their voices. You've seen their faces. You've heard them play.
And you've enjoyed their work. People like
Nancy Giles and Chris Phillips. Welcome to what I'm sure is going to be a fun and informative night. This is a bit of an experiment for me. My new podcast, which is still in production, is called Unsung, the people you don't know you know. Tonight, I'm combining it with Mentor Monday and two guests that are each worthy of their own unsung episodes. In fact, in fairness, neither of them is particularly unsung, and it's awesome of them to both be here. Nancy Giles is an Emmy Award-winning contributor to CBS Sunday Morning. Her insightful work on that show makes her an instantly recognizable figure. But she's done so much more than that. Movies, video games, cartoons, and more recently her own wonderful podcast, The Giles Files, available everywhere fine podcasts are served. But what's of interest for a lot of us here tonight is her extensive career in voice acting. We'll discuss her work in that area and see where there are some nice overlaps with Chris Phillips, our other guest tonight. Chris is an incredibly accomplished voice actor, musician, writer, actor, and producer. He was a natural pick for a Mentor Monday because of his extensive commercial, promo, video game, and animation work. But his career goes so far beyond that. He's been a part of some incredibly memorable comedy shows with Dennis Leary, which we'll talk about, including a couple of my favorite songs, The Asshole Song and Merry Fucking Christmas, with Dennis Leary and his band, The Enablers. So, we'll get more into all of this. Let's jump in. Bear with me while I close out of presentation mode and we finally get to see everyone's faces. And please remember to stay on mute until we get to the Q&A. Welcome, Nancy and Chris. Hey, guys. Welcome, welcome. I'm going to try to find Nancy and Chris to unmute them. There we go.
Here I am. Can you hear me?
I can, loud and clear, like you're a voice actor or something.
Yay.
There's that voice. Where's Nancy? You're hiding in there somewhere. There she is.
I don't hear you, Nancy.
I don't hear Nancy. Nancy. All right, we're just going to kick her out. This is the Chris show now. It's just how
well, I
roll.
can do Nancy's voice, actually.
Oh, I know. I figured you could. I figured you could.
I've been working on it. You never know. Just in case CBS could call me up.
Well, I want to thank you guys both for being here. Nancy's waving. Nancy's just going to write everything down and hold it up on paper.
There might be a mute button in the corner.
No.
No.
Yeah, but she's not muted.
Huh.
This is why we do technical tests before we jump into shows.
I see.
Well, it's okay because some people are still joining.
Oh, good.
During the intro, I was getting a barrage of texts from people asking how to join. I'm like, well, hit the link I emailed over and over again. Well, we got to get Nancy in the fold here.
I know. I feel a little naked.
I do too, but for different reasons, Chris.
Well, you never wear pants. That's the thing.
Not since March 14th.
Well, actually, I remember a few sessions prior to that. So, no pants Fridays,
Can everybody hear me okay? Is this thing working? Good. I'm getting some thumbs up, some folks. Somebody else commented they had a hard time getting audio, but
they were saying I should leave and come back.
Oh, good.
And you're back.
Well, you're here now.
So can you hear me?
Just them telling you that did it.
Yay.
That's the power of friendship.
Wait, you hear me now?
Totally hear you.
Oh, that's so funny. I was trying to gesture, I will leave and come back. Those are my, yeah.
We'll pretend we don't hear that.
Yeah,
And,
okay.
No, I
All
think
right.
we're good.
Okay.
So listen, really, it's so great to see you both. It's been way too long, first of
Oh,
all.
Yeah.
man.
And I don't even know where to begin with you both. I want to start again by saying thank you for doing this, because these have been really great for all the people starting out. You'll hear a lot of similar questions. We'll probably cover a lot of ground before we even get to those questions. But I want to start. I had no idea that you guys were even close. When I asked Chris to do this, and if there was anyone else he wanted to pair up with, he immediately brought up you, Nancy, and that
Chris
kind of blew my
knows I
mind.
have loved him since I first
Oh,
met him. He knows how dear he is to me. And the funny thing is, we've worked on the same shows, but we've never even been in a booth
never.
doing anything together. What a waste.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
And now you never will be, thanks, COVID.
Black voices matter. Okay, I probably shouldn't joke about that. But actually they do, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah,
but I
well-
adore Chris, and I was so
Oh.
happy that he asked me, and I'd been, so
I
I'm
love
honored,
Nancy.
and
What
I'm
can I
honored.
tell you?
And it's daunting for me, because if you both might remember separately, as far back as 2018, I was talking about this podcast I wanted to do, and Chris, you and I had spoken, but that was when Nutmeg was still around, and the Nutmeg closed, and everything went topsy-turvy.
Nutmeg
for a while.
closed? I didn't
Oh,
even know that.
See,
Really?
It's been a while.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Times they are a-changing.
Yeah.
But so everything got benched, and now I've been producing it, but I'm going to release it as a season, one a week, but I just don't have the bandwidth to do in perpetuity a new episode every week. You know how hard it is with your
Oh,
podcast.
yes,
Yeah.
I do.
It's a lot of work. But I'd already planned with each of you individually of having you guys on your own episode, which each of you could fill an hour and more just on what you've done.
This
So
is
it's
more
really
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
got nothing.
fun, and a bunch of people get to eat popcorn and watch us talk, which is really fun. So how long have you guys known each other? How long do you guys go back?
Let me think. Chris, I think I met you right when I came back to New York, having lived in LA. So I think I first met you in like 95, 96, like that.
I would have thought, mid to early 90s or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And we're with the same agents.
true.
And I feel like we met there or in a way. I don't know.
I can't remember either. It seems like I've known you forever.
I know. That's what's weird. We
always
talk
talk about doing something together, comedy-wise, music-wise, something-wise. I don't know.
Yeah, we
And
have
you
for a long
haven't.
time. No, and we
Oh,
also
wow.
have a sick attraction to very specific cult sitcoms and New York City trivia. And Chris
Yeah.
was one of the few people that was really impressed that I was on Wonderama
Oh,
years and years
I
and
didn't
years
even
ago.
know that.
Yeah.
That should have
Yeah.
been first on the IMDb page.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Man, I'm telling you, I'm dying to, if anybody out there has any connection to Bob McAllister and has the first few Sundays that he did that show, please call me, because I was on one of them, and it's to die for, I remember. But anyway, it was stuff like that, and Chris grew up in Manhattan, which
Yeah.
I always thought was so cool, because many people don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually,
Millions of people don't.
yeah, that's true. People say they're from New York, but I am actually from the city. So people say, how can you live there? But I guess you're born here, you're used to it.
Yeah.
That's right.
Love it. What can
So-
I tell you?
I know this is a very broad question, but I'm going to start with Nancy. Can you just share a little bit about your journey and how, it's almost weird because we're so voiceover specific, but I know you do so much more. So just talk a little bit how you got into any and all of this stuff that you do.
Okay, it's pretty funny because it actually, in a weird way, came true. Why do I do this? We were a very musical, very energetic family. I'm fifth of 7 kids, grew up in Queens. And I certainly loved watching TV, but never really thought about performing. And then, because I was a little shy. And then at some point, I did something and was noticed. And I remember just feeling the power of I think it was in high school. I was not in a theater clique or anything like that. I was like a sharecropper in Finian's Rainbow in junior high. And
I was in Finian's Rainbow also.
see, another connector. See,
Yeah, I
Me
played
and
So
Chris,
Finian.
many.
me and
There's
Chris.
so many.
I know. and so, I mean, I think it's important to say that because 10 times out of 10, the kids that aren't the big stars in high school and whatnot go on to do well. And I was someone who was like gnashing my teeth and really resenting all the popular high school kids. And I was in the pit orchestra of Anything Goes, and I remember playing viola and scowling at the whole cast and stuff. And anyway, I did some little performance at the day before graduation in high school, and it just worked. I imitated a teacher, and people were like, "You're hilarious, you're fabulous." And I have all these things in my high school yearbook, like, "Although I never spoke to you for the entire 4 years, you are really good," and stuff. Anyway, that kind of stuff stuck with me. I'll make this as short as possible. And because I'm kind of shy around the fellers, I had this fantasy that he would see me performing and love me, and that would be it. And I think in a weird way, that's how it all sort of started. Now, I also did grow to love it. I loved doing Second City. That was one of my first big professional jobs in Chicago. Improv comedy, I loved. I toured with them, came back to New York, went to open calls and got this show called Mayor about Mayor Koch. I'm aging myself, but that's the truth. Won an award doing that. I kept doing little bits of sort of satirical comedic things and little films that didn't make any money. And then got a little teeny part in the film Working Girl, and a little teeny part in the movie Big, and a little teeny part in this Woody Allen movie called New York Stories. And interestingly enough, Tom Hanks and Woody Allen and Mike Nichols, who directed Working Girl, they were on this list that I wrote to myself many years ago of like the 5 top people I wanted to work with. And I was kind of determined and young and thinner and had more energy. And that kind of ties into moving to California and doing China Beach, which I loved, but I really am more of a theater person. And then did another sitcom with Delta Burke, came back to New York, reconnected with my kind of comedic roots and my wonderful voiceover agents who I've had since 1986.
Wow.
And then through some of the comedy stuff that I was doing, I connected with a wonderful woman named Erin Moriarty, and Erin connected me. She's a journalist for CBS News for 48 Hours. And Erin wanted to do a radio show with me. And coincidentally, I was doing a radio show with Jay Thomas, which is a whole other story, and which I also loved because I love radio. And Erin introduced me to her boss at CBS Sunday Morning. He asked me if I had any ideas. I pitched this bizarre one about high-heeled shoes being a conspiracy against women. That's another long story. They kind of bought it, and I did that, and I've been with them for 17 years.
Wow.
So, and that's led to a lot of things like mouthing off about politics, stretch fabrics, profusely sweating when I was going through menopause during a very hot New York summer. All of these have been topics of commentaries and that, and then voiceovers. And I hope that tells something. Long sentence there. Okay.
Yeah, but that's good. I mean, but it just shows the range of things you've done. And I've got some notes, if we even have time to get to them later, about some interesting things in the research I've done.
Oh, dear.
And Chris, I want to ask you the same thing, but you're impossible to research because for all you do, very little comes up on the interwebs.
I'm very bad at any of that kind of stuff.
Not only that, but what does come up constantly is another Chris Phillips. There's another voice actor named Chris Phillips who never heard of the guy.
The reason my actual photo is that there is because I came across some other guy with the name Chris Phillips that I didn't even know if he really was a voice. It was just some picture that came with the wallet or something of some guy up there.
What?
I tried to find out who he was. I have no idea.
Yeah.
And I wrote to a couple of places, put my face up there on IMDb and all that. And
yeah,
there's kind of nuts. And there's a Chris Phillips hockey player out there.
Right. Right. You're going to have to change your name. I thought there was like a union thing.
Yeah.
Thing where you'd have to change your name if someone else had it, right? It's a bunch of
you put an initial in or something like that. That's why Michael J. Fox has the J, and other
and
people
his
have
middle initial isn't J also.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I forget what it is, but yeah.
Wow.
It's not that.
It's interesting. Yeah, I don't know who
he did after Michael J. Pollard, but that's because he was a fan of his.
Did he really? Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's some actor. He was so good in
he was great.
Bonnie and Clyde, among other things. Yes. Anyway.
It
Oh no,
reminds
that's
me
not
of
the same person. I'm sorry. Okay, no, go on, Chris.
He
Sorry.
was in Bonnie and Clyde.
Oh, that is him.
That is
Okay.
him, yeah.
I had a similar thing with Chris and this imposter Chris Phillips, who happens to also be. Do you remember the Budweiser, the lizard campaign from years ago? The two lizards,
Yeah.
right? So it was Paul Christie, who's a New York
Right.
guy, and Danny Mastrogiorgio. Am I saying?
Yeah, I forget. Yeah.
And a few years ago, well, a few years, like a decade ago,
Oh, jeez.
Danny came into Nutmeg to do this sort of reunion thing for Budweiser. And then we were ISDNing Paul Christie, right? Which I thought was weird because he's a New York guy. Like,
Yeah.
and then Danny knew right away. He was like shaking his head in the booth, going, "I know exactly what's about to happen." He said, "What's up?" Because there's another Canadian Paul Christie,
Huh.
and he knows it's not for him, but they allow him to get booked, and then he gets a session fee for showing up.
Oh.
Told we got the wrong guy, and then we have to get the regular. And apparently, it happens so many times over the years. So
That stinks.
it's what I'm saying is it's why we have to nuke Canada.
There
They're not letting us in anyway. So we really gonna have. It's time we just crack the whip a little bit.
We may
No,
need
no
them
one's
after
letting
the
us in.
election. Don't talk so quickly. You know, we might need them.
I know. Well, I'm starting to build a tunnel from my home in New Jersey to the Canadian border, just in case.
You never know.
You never know. But Chris, tell me what's a little bit of your story, how you get from A to B.
Well, as I said, I grew up in Manhattan, and my dad worked in television. When I was a kid, he worked for this company, NTA, which bought and sold old TV shows and cartoons, and he'd bring stuff home to watch in 16 millimeter. So I was around a lot of entertainment, and he ended up he had worked for CBS for a number of years. On my 9th birthday, he took me to the Ed Sullivan Show, and Nancy, to date myself, Nancy Sinatra did These Boots Are Made for Walking on that show.
Man.
It was great.
Wow.
And I was there. But I got to see, because of it, he worked with the ITC, a British company.
I remember
And
that.
I got to see shows like The Prisoner about a year before it came out in America. And it was cool. So there was a lot of entertainment. I went to a taping of The Tonight Show when it was done in New York at one point. But they made me sit in the control room because I was so young. They didn't want to pan the audience and have a little kid there because people would think, hey, what's a kid doing there at 11:30? Say that they taped it at 5:30, you know.
Right. Interesting.
In any case. But in my school, I started out in New York, and there wasn't much acting at the time. I taught myself how to play guitar. I was in like the school chorus and stuff. But when I was 15, we moved to Vermont. And that's when I got into more theater there, and also started a band there. And so I was playing, I was performing, anything with entertainment I was totally into. And knew I wanted to move back to New York. And when I finally I went to Boston. I went to college at Emerson College in Boston and met a lot of the closest friends that I still have today. And again, I was playing music out there. I was in comedy groups. I formed this group called the Emerson Comedy Workshop that's still there till this day.
Wow.
And and I met, one of my friends was Dennis Leary, who I've since worked with throughout all the years.
Yeah.
And as you had mentioned, I wrote or co-wrote the Asshole song, and that's a real toe tapper. If you folks don't know it,
It's never been more relevant, Chris. It's never
it's
been.
true. Yeah,
I know. It's it's majestic, that song. It really is.
It covers a demographic for sure.
There are musical parts of that song that are when we do it live and we have a full orchestra. It's wild, the full band. It really has great buildups in it. But it's with Dennis, we would do a lot of shows, and the two of us wrote a lot of songs, and with titles like Merry Fucking Christmas or Fuck You. And my mom was always so proud.
Very proud.
She saw me at Lincoln Center and we did the song Fuck You. And it sounded like the audience of an Alan Sherman record. Suddenly there was this wave of laughter. I see my mom in the audience going, like, typical. You're at Lincoln Center and you're singing Fuck You. But she knows me.
Be amazing.
But as far as like voiceovers, I was actually starting out to do on camera stuff. And I'd done a little bit here and there, and I forgot how I knew one producer that got me into some children's stuff, and I was reading audiobooks that came with a cassette. It was like it wasn't even a record; it was a cassette at that point.
Right.
You could listen to and follow along, and that was a lot of fun. And I got hooked up with an agent and started doing more of that. And after a while, I got lazy and just did that. I didn't have to shave to go to auditions or work. It was great. And I still played music for a number of years in different bands. In the 80s, I had a band called Hoy Boy and the Doys, and we had a band called The Enablers. I see there's a friend of mine on here in the audience, Jimmy Celeste. That's, hey, Jimmy, how you doing, pal? Take a lot of photos of us and was at a bunch of our gigs. And so the music has always been a lot of fun. And when Dennis ended up doing a TV show called Sex and Drugs and Rock, actually he did a show called The Ref. And I was on an episode of The Ref. I did a voiceover for an episode, and I had some music in one of them. So it was a nice little hat trick for that.
Yeah.
And when he did a show called Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll, I wrote music for it. I produced the music for it, and I did a lot of singing for it. John, now I'm blanking on his last name. The lead actor in it, John. He was in My Big Fat Greek Wedding, Sex and the City. John Corbett.
Yes.
John Corbett. Anyway, great guy. And he's a singer, but for some reason, I ended up doing his singing for him in the show. And there are other scenes in clubs where you see a singer and it's me. So I did a lot of singing in that show as well.
That's great. Oddly
enough. But, as far as voiceovers go, it's just been a lot of fun. And I do a lot of cartoons and commercials when I can. And I've actually started doing one of the cartoons that I'm in is Bubble Guppies. We're starting a 6th season, and I'm able to do it from home, which is crazy.
Yeah, but, it's the world we're in now.
I know.
I had a cartoon record this morning, but I've got the production company in this particular show is in Argentina, but I think some of their people are in LA, and the actors are all source connecting in from wherever. Although some of them will come to the studio because their booths at home aren't quite up to snuff, and thankfully we're able to accommodate that. But yeah, it's weird. I miss the people. I miss the sushi. I miss the cappuccinos. but I do kind of love seeing faces. I know that sounds weird, but the gig. Like I've got my back to the room all day.
Yeah,
so we're doing takes. I'm just kind of listening to see how they're reacting. But when you're recording actors now, and you can see the client's face go up and down when they hear what they like, it's like. Just speeds things up quite a bit.
Actually, kind of, it works out for this business. It's kind of not bad.
Yeah,
I never thought of that. That's true.
It's great, but the clients would all love to get back to business. So
yeah,
hopefully we get out of this soon. But I'm glad to hear you're able to record from home. Check the little box for Chris there.
I know.
I should have contacted you a while ago.
Yeah, I just want to add that Frank, you had a job at with a cartoon. Chris worked on Bubble Guppies. I didn't work on a cartoon. I just have to say, and I've also done voices. Well,
yeah, PB&J.
But I've done Bubble Guppies with you too. But they didn't call me recently, so. So
I'll speak to somebody.
No.
I don't know.
Yeah, right. I know. No. I was just making a little, one of those many voiceover. We've been in many waiting rooms, Chris and I, and heard all kinds of banter about who's so booked and can I go ahead of you because I'm on my way to a booking. Because I'm booking and I've got a book.
Right.
Right.
So
I think they probably have nothing. They just want to get out quick.
I know.
Yeah, I think that's it. And I think, somebody was just discussing this with me recently. It is a competitive business, but it's also a very friendly business, right?
True.
It's, I don't know if you guys, I almost don't want to bring this up because I don't know. Chris, do you ever go to the Grog? The annual
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I've been to a bunch of those.
My company dinner always falls on the same night, but it's the big, they take over a bar.
They just closed that bar.
Oh no.
It's always been Jake's Saloon and that's closed
Jake's
now.
Saloon closed? Oh dear.
God. Well,
somebody sent me a list of places that have closed and I couldn't read it. I was every other one was like, oh no.
Yeah. But every year there'd be that big voice actor party, which I really look forward to. And I don't say this to blow smoke. I mean, the best part of my gig is you guys. It's what inspired my podcast was the time we spend hanging out waiting for client approval or just shooting everything. Chris, we've never done a session where we're not doubled over laughing.
Yeah.
At some point,
I think we pissed off a couple of producers actually laughing.
Yeah, maybe. Well, yeah, look, gotta have fun. But it's that kind of business. So to the person that I was having that chat with, I think they're here. It is a very friendly and supportive environment, mostly. But you do hear those stories. There are the people who give misinformation or throw you off your game in the waiting room. Few and far between, but there are those moments.
There are, and not to continue to sound sort of snide, but I have never heard of the grog, and I've never been invited to the grog, and I kid you not, never. And I've been at this since 1986, so I'm like, the what? I never heard of that.
That's why as I was bringing it up, I'm like, I've never saw Nancy there.
Yeah, never. But
I
you know, actually, Frank, you were starting to talk about competitiveness and misinformation, and
yeah.
I have to say, I'm thrilled to say that on my end, the industry has changed a lot. But when I was first getting started, and it continues, and you see it every once in a while, there were some interesting moments in waiting rooms where I was the only African-American woman there, and I would see glances going back and forth, and more than once, people would say, are you here for the right audition? Or, you know, like the Ultra Sheen is actually like around the corner, and it might have been something like Ivory Snow. And I would go, no, I'm
right. Subtle little like,
all kinds of stuff.
One time I went to an audition, and I guess I was with a new agent, and they didn't know me or whatever, and I was the only white guy there. All these really tall. It was for black basketball players, and I don't know why they sent me on that, but I just remember being in the room, and it was a very quiet room, and everybody's voice was so deep, and my body vibrated, and I went, I'm in the wrong place. But
you know, and this is probably a good time to bring it up because it's a heavy topic, and race, you know, is an important part of what's happening right now. So yes, I have to ask, this is a good launching point. Chris, as a white male, have you had a hard time working in sorry, I just had to do that. Has it been difficult for you?
It's a difficult business, no matter, you know, what color or what anything you are.
No, but you know, I want to say too, because Nancy, I've heard you mention that story on other podcasts because I've researched, and I you know, I'm sure has happened a lot. Have you seen it change? And before you answer that, I want to say from my vantage point, both as a casting director, you know, in part of what I do, and also consulting with voice actors throughout the pandemic, getting everybody up to speed, I've seen like a tremendous new crop of people of color getting into the business. And it's kind of cool because it feels like for a big part of my career, it was sort of rare. It was like not, and now it's like, it's getting there, like the way it kind of should be.
Yeah, it does feel like it's changed. I mean, I saw a big sea change when President Obama came on the scene.
Right.
And he was elected president, and he and Michelle were just a real presence. And I started to see differences, a lot of differences actually in on-camera commercials before anything else, before like a show like Blackish or whatnot. There were different kinds of images, there were different kinds of portrayals of little snippets of Black life that were, in a lot of cases, from the way I look at it, they were funnier and wittier than just that, girlfriend, I got to get me some fried chicken.
Right. Oh,
which I'm telling you, well, look, we're actors and we should do all of it. But how I started doing stand-up comedy was I was not booking voiceover commercials at first because I really resented, it felt like I was being pushed in that corner. And then I was living on West End Avenue. My rent was way too high. And I got an audition for Crisco Oil. And I was like, I got to just, you know, I got to do what I have to do. So, and the commercial was literally like, girl, what you think about that guy? Ooh, I got to get me some fried chicken and Crisco Oil. And I booked it. And when I told my friend, a longtime friend, the comedian Louis Black, when I told him this story, he listened like a lot of comedians do and just kind of bowed his head and said, yeah, this is going to kill. Because I said, I was thinking of reading this commercial as my stand-up thing and just explaining like all the thoughts going through my head. And it started me doing my own stuff, but I have seen things change. Chris knows, because I think we've got the best agents in the business. Cunningham loves good actors. And they were always sort of pushing the envelope, sending me sometimes for things where they're only seeing men, but they would get me in, or they're only seeing white women and they would get me in, or they weren't sure what they were doing. And for a long time, Paul Christie and I were like a radio couple, you know, because it's voices. It shouldn't matter. But it has for a long time. And last thing I'll say right now is that there were also times where I would book a job and maybe be the first one in the recording studio other than the technician. And the clients would come in and jump when they saw me, like, what are you doing here? And I would have to, well, actually, I'm doing the thing. And it'd be like, oh, I mean, because
Yeah.
quote unquote, I didn't sound Black, which is also changing because people realize Black people, you might want to write this down, Frank, for further, interviews. Black people can sound lots of different ways.
We're
Like
actors. That's the whole idea.
Yeah. I mean, Chris, I have to say this. Chris has one of the most amazing ranges of anybody I've ever met, to the extent that I know him. We know we do voiceovers. And one of the first times I called him, because I was like, we just have to get together and talk about the crazy stuff we like. I listened to his outgoing message, and my message to him was, Chris, who is that doing that voice? That guy's tremendous. And it was him.
Yeah.
It was that good. So it should be that way, though, right, Chris? Don't you think?
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've gone on auditions where I don't look the part of what I'm auditioning for. And, you can sort of see people like, all right, we'll just read them. And then if it's like a big Hulk voice or whatever, it's kind of a thing. I booked those kind of jobs, and people have gone like, oh, I never expected that. Or, that's why sometimes when you send in an audition, when you're not seeing the producer, it kind of works better because it's only about the voice.
My God. Frank, I'll tell you this one little anecdote. I got the series China Beach. I moved out to LA, and I thought, because I'm on TV now, and at this point, demo tapes were they reel-to-reels, or maybe they were cassettes by now?
Yeah.
We've been through all these formats, right?
Yeah.
Dad. Oh my God. So anyway, I thought, I'm on this show, and people see my name every week and my face on the opening credits. So I put my picture on my demo tape. And once I did that, the only auditions I were getting, because before I was up for all kinds of things and I was in LA, but at that point I started just getting auditions for Colt 45 and Hair Relaxer. I am not kidding.
Wow. Yeah. The 90s.
Yeah, right.
I have to, while we're on this subject, this is a 2-minute diversion, totally worth it. Talk about an actor of color being put on the spot in a session. I'm going to share this video because it absolutely kills me. It's 2 minutes long, but worth it. Worth the punchline. Hang on one sec. Do you know the actor Michael Leon Woolley? Any of you guys?
I might know him if I see him.
Oh, he's wonderful. But this is phenomenal. I'm going to share this. Hopefully it'll play. Go full screen. You guys seeing that okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
I just love this story.
Something obscure. Once in New York City, I was, this is a few years ago, I was asked to do a demo for an Amco commercial. And I was, only time I've ever been asked to be white. And I get there and they're like, Michael, it's really simple. We just need you to say 4 words, but we need you to be very white. And I was like, okay. And so I go in the booth and they show the commercial and the words come up and I go, Amco for the love. They look at me like I'm crazy. And they come on and say, what are you doing? You can do better than that. And I was like, okay. So take 2. They show the commercial again, and I go, Amco for the love. And now in the booth, I see the Amco people getting upset and the advertising. And this woman comes on and goes, what are you doing? And I say, listen, I don't know how to be very white. And she goes, no, I said very white.
I just love that story. And he talk about a voice. My God.
Yeah.
And it's relevant too to this conversation because he was in a movie called The Princess and the Frog. It was Disney's first African-American princess. And I did a whole bunch of work around that with Vanessa Williams promoting the movie and all this cool stuff that went with it at the time. And it was quite a big deal. So I want to talk a little bit about animation in particular while we're kind of on this subject. What changes have you seen over the years, not just necessarily in terms of race, but in terms of production, how it's done? Have you seen a change? I know, Chris, you might be a little more involved these days because Nancy bought CBS a few years ago, so she's been busy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well, one thing I've noticed is they don't want cartoon voices to sound as cartoony as they used to. A lot of times they just sort of want a real voice that's quirky. So if you have a quirky voice, there's a good shot of that. But they'll just ask me to just sort of do something in your own voice or a slight variation. So my original, when I first got started, I had a voiceover reel of commercial stuff in my own voice, and then a cartoon reel, which was characters. Then I ended up making a third cartoon reel. So there was one that was not so charactery and one that was, very charactery or whatever, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I had to diversify that way. As far as the actual making of commercials, that's gone a lot faster these days because of the way you can animate. So I've seen a faster turnover with a lot of commercials. Some still get animated, overseas. Some things are still hand drawn, but I don't know. It's and now you can do it from home, so that's a big change as well.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed, and I haven't done nearly as many animated voices as Chris, but one thing that I've noticed that he and I have talked about has been this this focus a lot of the time on getting a celebrity to do a voice, whether or not the celebrity has a distinctive voice. And I remember a couple of years ago at the Oscars, Chris Rock, who has a distinctive voice, got up and was kind of mocking the voiceover industry, saying, I did this and that and the other, and I made $1 million in an hour, and it's so easy. And I was like, oh man, that just really hurt my feelings. Yeah, he has a distinct voice, but a lot of them don't, to the extent that when you see promotions for some of these, they have to show the celebrity holding like the character face, it's Melissa McCarthy, it's this person.
You'd never know that otherwise.
You would never know. And the people that we grew up listening to, who you would pass in the street and never see, Mel Blanc, Gene Vanderbilt, I mean, all the Alan Reed, who's in the Fred Flintstone, they
Paul
just
Frees.
were Paul Frees. These were just amazing. Bea Benaderet. I mean, I could go on and on and on.
Oh, Brian McFadden's dad, right?
Oh yeah, Bob McFadden.
Yeah.
There were a lot of local New York guys, Alan Swift and stuff. The people that did a lot of cartoons. Chuck McCann. Yeah, they went all over the place.
Yeah.
But
and Chris, I want to circle back to that because there's some overlap with animation and commercial and Paul Frees, right? Because you took over for Boo Berry at some point.
Right.
Wasn't that a Paul Frees voice initially?
Initially it was. And Bob McFadden actually was Frankenberry, funny enough.
So great.
But it was great when I first started to get into business, to see these people and work with people that I grew up with. Like, hey, you were the TV repairman in the Duncan Hines ad. Like, oh my God, I grew up on you.
Yeah,
and everybody's, and I'm a big collector of videos and commercials. So many people that I ended up working with, their resume is my video collection. It's crazy. Like Bob, no, I'm forgetting everybody's name. Not Bob McFadden. Anyway, but there were just a lot of guys that did a lot of great stuff. So, I mean.
I'm sure some of the people in the group too would love to know, was there any specific road that led you to booking animation work? I know Sarah Switek, who's in the group, whose voice you have to hear. I want her to ask her question, but she'd submitted about getting an animation demo heard by the right people. Is that something you guys even had to bother with, or was your trajectory just completely different? And also, Sarah, say hi, because I want them to hear your voice. This is a woman born to do animation.
Hi, Nancy. Thank you so much for doing this. And also, I just want to let you know that Nick Jr., Face, Doug, and PB&J Otter were all very big parts of my childhood. So thank you.
Sarah, thank you. That's so nice.
Can somebody get her an agent, please?
I know. That's
my
so
God,
great to hear. She has a great voice. Go ahead, Chris.
And that's what I was talking about. If you've got like a quirky voice and a distinct voice, that's great, because not only for animation, but just, I think commercials, when you hear a distinctive voice, there are certain people, the guy that's doing the Gain laundry detergent and stuff has kind of a deeper, sort of a lethargic voice.
Yes.
And that's a unique voice that might not have worked except for cartoons years ago, but, so.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm sorry. What's that? We have the meats.
Oh, yeah, Arby's. I used to do Arby's, actually.
I mean, those kind of distinct voices. Oh, that's right. Oh, really? Sorry.
But I was doing it in more of a voice like Arby's, the something squad, so. I forget what it was. Everybody always says, so do they give you free food? It's like, no. You never get anything that you
never get anything. I still do voiceovers for Food Network, and I have to sneak out because the sound guy gives me like free Food Network magazines. They won't give me anything. But I'm really happy to work for that.
Give us a little Food Network. I didn't even realize that was you, Nancy, until I started researching.
It's not as much me, but it used to be, let's see, Chocolate Obsession Week tonight. Or no, that would be Chocolate Obsession Week, Monday through Friday at 8 on Food Network. I mean, that was one. So.
I do a lot of Halloween kind of Food Network stuff whenever there are like scary cook-offs or whatever, or the big Halloween bake-offs.
Oh, yes.
In some weird, scary voice or whatever. You know.
You guys both have such range. And Chris, while we're still on animation, Fred Jenkins, who I'm not sure if I saw in the room yet, but he may very well be here, he had asked, do you when you do a show where you're playing multiple voices within the same cartoon, how do you keep track of them? How do you keep those voices straight? I kind of know the answer, but I'm curious your take on it.
Well, you know, a lot of times the way, and that's another thing actually to kind of answer a question you asked earlier about what's changed in animation. They used to have all the actors together and you would all read your parts as like, you know, like you're reading a play. Right. But now everybody is an individual and you just read your parts. So you're reacting to nobody. You're just reading the script and trying to figure out what's happening. Sometimes I don't really even get much direction. I'll have to back read of what just happened before my line, you know, but so that's kind of a shame. And now I've gone off on this and I forgot what your question was, but
just keeping track of all the character voices. But I think that's the answer.
Well, when it's one at a time, it's a little easier. Every now and then I'm able to, I did one thing for CBS years ago, Generation Jets. It was like a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning cartoon. And I did multiple characters and there were 3 distinct voices and we would just do the whole thing. Actually, that was the last time I ever worked with 3 other actors live, well, not live to tape, but we would just read the script and I'd go back and forth with the different characters. And it was so much fun to do it that way.
My gosh. You're lucky because I've never been in the room with anybody. You know, when you're singing a song in a cartoon, it can be so lonely. And if you're lucky, maybe the director will read you lines going in, but most of the directors are good directors, but their voices may not be so, you know, so great.
I find these days each network is different. And by that, I mean, there's a different way Disney directors operate than Nickelodeon and then Cartoon Network. And they're all 3 clients of mine. But Disney really, it's a broad statement. The Disney folks will definitely read you in. They'll even go so far as to queue up the line before you if it's already recorded. Like they really take the time to do it right.
That's terrific.
You know, Nickelodeon is similar, but you're still all in a vacuum, which is so tedious. Cartoon Network, it's a totally different animal. In fact, there's shows I'm working on now for Cartoon Network where they're, I think, mandated to limit the amount of cast per episode. So everybody's like doing different voices. So you're like, all right, we're going to go through and get your character. And then I need you to be this cop in this moment and this person in that moment. Everyone's got double duty.
Frank, can I ask you, do you think that's why they don't have all the actors in a room or at least 2 people in a room together? I mean, is it from a production standpoint, is it easier to sew things in that way?
Well,
it sure isn't as much fun.
I know Nickelodeon, for example, like the SpongeBob folks. When I work with actors in New York for SpongeBob, it's because they happen to be in New York and we need to get them. The rest of the team, they're out in Burbank and they go in groups per scene. They'll have 3 or 4 people in the booth and then they'll switch out and bring in the next team. And it's different. And that's a show that's been, they can all finish each other's scripts.
Right.
Years ago, I worked on a cartoon called The Mighty Bee for Nickelodeon. It was Amy Poehler's baby.
Right.
She was the executive producer. And early on, she would come in and read with all the people in California. So she was in New York and then everyone else was in Burbank. But it got really tedious and her schedule for SNL at the time was intense. So they finally just started, they do the group and then she would come in and just knock out all her lines quickly just due to scheduling. And I think for a lot of like Disney features that I've worked on, it's the same thing. The actors in New York on a Broadway show, they're close to the studio. They just have to swoop in and do their lines.
Oh, I see.
Right.
See. Yeah.
And it's so surreal for those watching who don't know the process, but like I keep thinking back to John Cleese in the movie Planes. Planes wasn't quite as successful as Cars, but he had a small part. He came in to record Planes for like 1 2-hour session. Then the whole rest of the day was the EPK crew first informing him about his character and backstory, and then they did this interview. So when you get the DVD extras, the Blu-ray extras, and you look at it, it's like he worked on this for a year. And it's like, that was a 2-hour session.
Yeah.
In and out. And then they sat and interviewed him for half an hour. And it's mind blowing.
Wow.
You know?
Did he change shirts so it looked like it was over a period of time?
I don't even think so.
These are the things I look for.
Here's what I remember about that day and hated. I had a really bad cold, and he stuck his hand out to shake my hand, and I said, "I just don't want to get you sick. I'm really." And I was like, "When else am I going to get to shake John Cleese's hand?"
Yeah.
And I had to pass on it.
That was very good of you.
Little Purell next time.
Yeah. Well, look where it got us.
That's where it started. Okay, no jokes.
It was you.
Yeah.
But who is I'm forgetting his name. The Family Guy guy.
Seth.
Seth MacFarlane.
Seth MacFarlane.
I've seen him switch voices on the fly, character to character. I don't know if he records that way, but man, that's impressive.
Yeah, they show him doing that, but I don't know how they actually do the show.
Wow.
Yeah,
one last note about because this is topical and it relates to some of what we talked about for commercial. It's been a lot of characters of different ethnicities voiced by white actors that have now all been sort of stepping down from those, either retiring the character or no longer doing those roles. I just wondered your thoughts on that, because it's a weird one, but it makes total sense in 2020. But in 1990, no one thought twice about it. So
are you asking me or both of us?
Both of you guys. Just curious.
Well, I'll jump in. I wouldn't have a problem with white actors doing all kinds of ethnicities if turnabout was fair play, and it's never been. Because one of the things that I so looked forward to when I was living in LA, I thought, I do voices, I'm good. I'm friends with Dan. Dan Castellaneta is a very dear friend of mine who's Homer Simpson.
Right.
And I never put any pressure on him or anything like that, but I was like, oh God, I'll get a chance to work with Dan. And I auditioned for The Simpsons over and over and over and over again. And, for funny, sort of zany parts that weren't necessarily Black, and never got any of them. Now, I can't speak for everybody, but I really do believe voices can live or die on their own. They have their own texture, and they don't really have a racial color, but it's not been fair. White people have been able to do all kinds of voices, and the same has, in my experience anyway, not applied to Black actors when it comes to cartoons and stuff. Not nearly as much. So that's kind of my take on it. Chris?
Yeah, no, I feel the exact same way. Because I like to be able to do a lot of different voices, but I'm afraid to because I don't want to be taking work away. Many years ago, I remember going on an audition. They wanted a sound of an older woman, for a NyQuil spot, and I didn't want to go in on the audition because I didn't want to. There were a lot. It's not easy. Yeah. The older you get in the business, it's harder to. But they were like, "Oh, you do that bit around the office or whatever." So I went in and I did whatever a few different things or something. I ended up booking a couple of voices on it, but I went in at the end when everybody was gone. But it was weird. It was me and a girl that was younger than I am. There were no elderly women on it. So, it's weird. I've had a lot of odd, uncomfortable situations. I was doing a rap thing early on when I first got started. And then the producers asked me if I could sound more Black. And I guess because I was new in the business, I just asked, well, why don't you actually get a Black actor? And
what did they say? Do you remember?
Vividly. They said, we don't want it to sound that Black.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean,
oh my God. So wait a minute. So I just got to say this, because I know I've told you this, Chris, and Frank, I probably have whined this one to you too. From the moment I started doing voiceovers, I would get that note all the time. Can you be more Black? Or can you sound more street? Or they would say things like,
or more
can you
urban. Yeah.
I won't say names.
And I'd be like, what? Yeah, I knew what they meant, but it's like, it's that same kind of narrow-minded thinking. Oh my God. I don't want it that Black. That's a good one.
About a year or so ago, I worked on a cartoon session with one of the original cast members of Hamilton. And she was talking about a cartoon she got booked for where clearly somehow they just assumed Hamilton, rap, we're going to book you for this thing and you're going to rap.
Yeah.
If you've seen Hamilton, she doesn't rap. She's an astonishing singer.
Yes.
And there's some rapid fire moments in her parts, but they kept the same thing. Can you do a little more, And she was like looking at them like, did you even watch Hamilton? Like, this isn't what I do. I'm not,
oh my
I can't even name a rapper they were trying to imagine. But I guess it still exists, but it's ignorance. And I will tell you, I watched and squirmed in my chair at Nutmeg. This is going back a while, where we had they were doing a campaign where it was a pay-as-you-go for a mobile cell phone, and they invented this religion called pagoism, right? That was the whole thing. So they had this like assembly of people all in the booth doing like a gospel sort of thing, and the directions flying from the creative's chair to the booth, I would see the faces of the actors. And then finally they started to really like mutter and kind of mute me a little bit. And I finally had to turn around and say, I know you don't mean to, but you're really offending all of them right now. And you might want to choose your words a little more carefully.
Yeah.
And I think some of them went back to their agents and demanded extra stuff for some of what they were being asked to do. And
extra emotional. Want some emotional financial
I think there was
support.
stuff like one of them might have been a little more Hispanic, and they were asking translations of things, and he put in for a translation fee, and rightfully so. It's like you should have done that before the session.
Absolutely, and I have to put this in too because it's not just a simple white people doing this to actors of color. I've had it done to me by Black and producers of color. I get it there too. There was an audition once that I just couldn't bring myself to even stay for. And it was a rap, and it was for African-American audiences. And the woman was rapping to her man saying, "Don't be late, you got to check your prostate." And it was about prostate cancer. And I just looked at the script and looked at the like 40 other talented actors that were actresses that were waiting. And I just crossed my name off. And as I was leaving, and I think it was Joan Lynn was the casting director. And I like Joan. She came, I was crossing my name up and I was just trying to slink out, and Joan ran out and she was like, "It's a Black ad agency. We didn't write it. It's a Black ad agency." And I was like, look, I said, "It's okay. I just can't. I can't rap about prostates. I just, can't do it." But someone did it. But there's crazy crap.
Well, but that makes me think there are certain things, it's like as an actor, you think I'll take anything for work, but every now and then there'll be like a political thing that crosses your path and you go, you know what, I don't subscribe to that way of thinking or that person or, so you turn stuff down,
That's a tough one. Well, while we're kind of segueing into commercial work a little bit, I'm going to start with a question that Christina Andretta asked, which is a good one, just to sort of talk more about this. What are some of your most memorable audition sessions, good, bad, or ugly?
Oh, boy. Good, bad, or ugly?
Well, one session that's very memorable with Frank, you were the engineer for, was Paul Christie and I were doing these Walmart characters, Wally and Marty.
I have that on tape somewhere. My God, that day counted as cardio for me. I laughed so hard.
Oh my God.
Tell the story.
Well, it started off when I forgot the name of the girl that was like running.
Lauren.
Lauren,
no, not Lauren.
Not Lauren.
Sorry, before her.
She was.
Karen.
She asked if we wanted. It was at the end of the day, and she asked Paul and I. She said, "So, what are your drink orders, fellas?" And I didn't know if she was kidding or whatever, so I put in a drink order just as a joke, and then Paul did too, and she came back with cocktails.
Yeah.
So the whole session was the clients weren't there; it was all phone patched. So we started drinking.
I think some of them were there, weren't there?
I don't think so, but maybe they were.
Maybe.
But
You were so hammered, you don't even know. Okay, go on.
I was sober.
It was so much fun. That was I couldn't say. I mean, it was a long session. We had a lot of.
It was for a big brand. I don't want to say the name, but it rhymes with small fart.
Yeah.
Oh.
And we were doing this website where you guys were like elves, right? For this website.
So you send the site to your parents or your grandparents, and you, as a kid, click on the toys or whatever you want, and then send that list.
But
and
the
they can easily shop.
descriptions that they gave us for the toys were like batshit crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, we just couldn't get through them because they were so, and they were asking you guys to like rap a little and do all these weird.
It was, and there were certain callback bits that we kept doing, and it was
I
just.
think I broke a rib that day.
Yeah, it really devolved, but it came out, and we did more sessions, I think, afterwards.
Yeah. That's back when there was
wow.
money in it.
Yeah.
What about
yeah.
you, Nancy? You got any
Well,
winners?
I think one of the most memorable, and not because it was bad, but because it was something that I never expected that I would get, and it was one of those that Cunningham sent me on, and it was, I believe it was me and a bunch of white guys, and I ended up booking it, and it was for the New York Times. They did this national network campaign where they had anagrams. One word turns into another. Beautiful music, black and white photos and whatnot, and it like when the copy is good and it's something that you really, well, either you feel strongly about or it doesn't matter because you know you're going to make some money, you know.
Yeah.
And there's music, and in this case, I asked the engineer, I said, could I read to the music? Because sometimes, and the clients were there, sometimes they don't want you to do that, but I love hearing that.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember the sound guy's name. He was famous. He was a big, tall guy that passed away and had a big memorial, and everybody knew him, and I can't think of his name.
Oh.
I think it was Joe. Anyway, could not have been nicer. So supportive. After I laid down 2 takes, and they were all yakking and talking one, and he came in, he put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, they're not going to realize it, but you nailed it already, and they're gonna, and I'm gonna set this up, and you might have to keep doing it, but they're gonna come back to 1 or 2. Watch. And
every session.
And I swear to God, that's what happened. But it was a big stepping stone for me, because it opened me up to a lot of different campaigns, and I'm so grateful to Cunningham for even, you know, pushing the envelope, and for the casting director, who I can't remember, who let me come in and do it, you know?
Yeah.
Because girls didn't get that, certainly not black girls, and I was thrilled.
I have a story about that creative director on those. I didn't get to work on those spots, but I worked with her. This is a story I tell. You never know with people in general what you're walking into. So there was a day for that agency, which was Bozell. They were one of my biggest clients back in the day, and I was doing Excedrin for them. Okay. And it was a radio producer I had history with, who is now moving up to TV, and it was her first big job. And it was that creative director came in, and the voiceover was the same guy. I forget his name, but he'd done it for years. Excedrin, the headache medicine, over and over. So he comes in, and I'm thinking, why are we even? We could just take last week's spot and copy it over. Why are we even? But it was her new baby, and she had him do 97 takes, 3 in a row. And he's looking at me through the glass like, help me out here. So finally I turned around and said, hey, you know, we're really running tight on time. I don't think we're getting anything different. I was 23 at the time. And she was not older, but she was older. She was pissed, stormed out of the room. And I felt horrible, but we got the job done. They came back 2 days later. The producer arrived early, young producer, and said to me, so here's the deal. That day, her husband left her right before the session. Oh. And it was like out of nowhere thing. So you never know,
oh my God,
right, about what you're. But the happy ending to that in my mind is those spots you did for the New York Times were all hers. And those things are in MoMA now. They're part of the permanent collection of the Museum of Modern Art.
What do you mean, man? What do you mean?
Yeah, every year, Liz is in the room. Liz is an agency producer. She'll tell you. Every year there's the big AICP show where the best commercials of the year that are voted on, they are put into the permanent collection in the Museum of Modern Art.
What is it? What's going on?
Really what it is, it's an excuse to put on a tux and get drunk with all your peers, really is what it is.
But no invite. What?
Well, you know, but that happens
is it my breath? What is it?
I've been in spots that have won different kind of awards, and if I do hear about it, it's because somebody happened to mention it at a session. Like, hey, that spot that we did won an award. It's like,
I did a spot for Budweiser. This Bud's for 2. It was Derek Jeter when they retired the number 2.
Oh, my God.
If it wasn't for Facebook, I wouldn't know that I got a Clio for that. I had no idea.
Yeah.
No idea. The producer posted it. I was like, oh, well, that's good to know.
Why don't they ever let us know? What is that?
I don't know.
I did get 2, actually, things for Face. I have a plaque, a gold something award, and I have a solid brass NEA, National Education Association Award. My sister is a school teacher. And when I said I'd never heard of an NEA, and I remember letting her know, I said, hey, I won this NEA. Have you ever heard of it? And she said, what? I've been teaching for years, and you do some goofball voice and win an NEA? It's like, well, it's cool. But it looks great. It looks like an award. It's in a big wooden block, and it's a big flame and brass. And yeah,
we hinted at earlier, like celebrities doing commercial and cartoon voiceover work, and that's just a big part of the world we're in. I hope she doesn't mind me saying, and I won't air this if she's upset, but Liz is a producer in the room who was on a job once where a celebrity came in to audition, and they'd already recorded a voiceover. And he came in, I think it was a Saturday, if I remember correctly. It was like a weekend thing. I don't want to say his name, but it rhymes with Schmalik Schmaldwin. And he came in to read this spot, and we played him what was there. And he did a couple of reads, and to his credit, because he's done a lot of commercial work on and off over the years, he came into the room and said, I don't think I can do anything more than what that guy in there already has done. And that he just sort of was totally honest about it.
That's awesome.
Nice. I don't know, Liz, do you remember it differently? I think I remember you being in the room for that.
No, I pretty much remember it that way. And I remember him being really very genuinely kind of unsure that he was the right guy for the job in a very endearing way, actually, sort of not, I expected him to come in this incredibly sort of confident way. And he really wasn't. And yeah, he came out after a couple, I think, and just was like, that's what I got.
Yeah. And the guy who was in the original cut was pretty phenomenal. I never knew who it was.
He was good. Yeah, he was good.
So wait, did they end up using the original guy or going with Alec Baldwin?
I don't know if did those spots ever get finished? I don't even remember even.
They did.
They did.
They did, but not with him. He also took about 90 seconds to read a third.
Wait, not with who? Not with Alec, or not with the original guy?
Not
with Alec.
Oh wow! Oh,
but there have been situations. I remember going into one session where they had a model on camera, and she said, I think like 2 words, like "it's delicious" or something like that, and she sounded fine. And they had a voiceover actress come in and say, "It's delicious," and their voices almost sounded alike. And I didn't know, why are they doing that? Why don't they keep I didn't know if it was a union thing or if it was, it wasn't as though the woman had a speech impediment or a thick accent or anything. And it was just like a 2-word thing.
I'll say this too. Voice actor friends always like to get pissed about the celebrities that called in to do jobs, but some of them are usually with merit. Stephen Arcieri represents a lot of celebrity voice actors, and because
he was my original agent. He's
wonderful.
Agent.
And I think because of proximity to Nutmeg, he used to send and come, because he would always be at a session. He would like direct his celebrities. I had a preset on my console called Arcieri, so that because very often celebrity would come in. Clients are in California, Chicago, wherever. He wanted a way to be able to direct his actor without them hearing down the line. So I did a configuration for that and saved it. So he, any number of celebs. But the people that would come in brought something to the party. Like Liev Schreiber is a great example. I'm not name dropping, but
he's a wonderful voice.
Right. Yeah. He's a New York actor. He did his years in commercials and then became a celebrity. But when he looks at a script, he's just not like reading it, I'm famous, now I'm going to go home. He's like directing the clients and ways to improve it or better ways to read it, or even mic placement. He's like, I don't want to be this close. I like, and he was like, do you. But so I always say,
he's a nice guy.
Very nice guy. But there's so many people like that where the celebrities do bring something. And to that, I want to ask you this question. I bring this up to people all the time, and they look at me like I'm crazy. But do you think there's a difference between being a voice actor and a voiceover? And the answer to me is yes. And I hear it even just tonight when Chris does things. There's voice acting, there's doing something, and then there's just being a voiceover. You've got a nice voice and you read the words. What's your take on that?
Yeah, you can hear sometimes where it sounds like it was the producer or a producer's cousin or something that did the voiceover. It's like, well, there is a voice there, but the read is just not happening, or it's just Blanderson, It's just literally reading words on a piece of paper. So yeah, I mean, and it can be like an MTV promo or something like that. That maybe they want sort of that low key, non-announcer, non-reader kind of way.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But I don't
think
know.
I don't feel like they're birds of a feather. I think that, but I know what you're saying, Chris, because we're always told non-announcery. They don't want an
You're right.
announcer. They never want an announcer. No one.
Well,
ever
actually,
wants an
every now and
announcer.
then I get calls for something. We want a real announcer classic.
Oh, okay, because that rarely.
Chris,
comes
I think that's been me a few times.
I think so.
Thank you for the call.
but the other one you'll get all the time is anyway, I want to go back to your original question, which is voice actor versus voice over. And I think really good voiceovers are also good actors. I feel like you have to have that.
Yeah.
But I know that kind of quality that I hear sometimes that I don't necessarily like to hear, that kind of flat, whatever.
Yeah.
That maybe is a whole new quality. But my favorite direction always is, say it as if you're talking to a friend. So you're like,
right.
Hey girl, don't take Boniva if you have, whatever. I'm forgetting my whole Boniva. Although the fair balance things that you would say, don't take Boniva and tell your doctor if you have difficult or painful swallowing, chest pains, or severe continual heartburn, as these may be signs of serious upper digestive problems, hon. I mean, no one talks that way.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's the thing. There'll be copy that no one would ever say in real life, but they want you
But make it
throw it away,
conversational.
act like you. Yeah, exactly.
And don't
I can't even
speed through
pronounce it.
Right. Don't speed through it, but you can pick up the pace. So that don't take Boniva and tell your doctor if you have difficult or painful swallowing, chest pains, or severe. I mean, you know?
That reminds me, I had an audition once that was a medical thing, and it was so chock full of words that I couldn't get through it. And the woman that was running the audition, it was at Cunningham, my agents, and she was really nice. She said, "Don't worry, I can edit you into a great performance." And I went, "Oh, good." And then I left and I went, "Wait a minute, I don't know if I really want to book this, because if I book this thing, I'll never be able to get through it. And these people are going to go, this guy's a fraud, or how did he?" And I started to sweat it out. I got put on hold for it. It was between me and another guy. And I remember talking to my agent, Anita, saying, "I don't know if I'll be able to get through this." She said, "Don't worry. Nobody really can get through these things. They do it piece by piece." And finally, they ended up going with the other guy because he had a British accent, and they decided they'd go British. And I was never more relieved to not book a gig.
Those are hard. He's right. I did a whole thing for a drug to help hemophiliacs. And they gave me the script 2 days in advance because there were all of these, I had to write everything out phonetically. And yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
That's the farmer work is good though. We go through that with IKEA, pronouncing all their furnitures, and we'll have the client from Sweden will pronounce it. It's like the Schnurgen. I'm like, but then nobody says it that way, so we always end up just doing the American kind of interpretation of it.
Right.
But
Bureau.
Hilarious. Yeah. Get the table. And a lot of those Swedish words, that's what I have a Swedish friend in my town, and we were talking about it. And I said, yeah, well, we're going to get this. She's like, well, that's Swedish for tree. that's what the word means. I'm like,
Oh wait, someone is writing in saying at least you don't have to assemble the furniture. That's kind of funny. I just wanted to read that.
Well, that was my first IKEA spot. We recorded all the takes, and I turned around to the room and said, "I'm going to give you all the takes and little pictures on how to put it together, so you can make the commercial."
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm here all day. Try the.
I love it.
So I want to circle back. Liz, who we spoke to earlier, had a question, and she said, my question would be, are there resources you would suggest for people who have gotten into voice work without formal acting training and want to improve their skills? Any thoughts on that these days?
Well, there are different voiceover teachers and people who have classes. Sometimes they're actors and some of them are casting people. I guess that, and I know a couple of casting folks that have actually had actors that have been in the business and hadn't been working for a while, call them up and say, I'm maybe not getting the natural voice, the regular guy read, right? So they'll work with them, and then, that's a help. So. Yeah.
I mean, I know that there are classes and some are good and some are ripoffs.
Yeah.
You have to know which ones are which ones. But one thing I try to tell people who say they want to do this, and most of the time, if you start explaining the work that it takes and how many disappointments there are, their eyes kind of glaze over because people just think, oh, I'm just going to do it, But
Yeah.
there's so much you can learn by listening, just by listening to radio and listening to TV commercials and listening to stuff on the radio, just listening
Yes,
to things, which
exactly.
it may seem strange, but a lot of people wouldn't even think of that, you know? And again, I think of the stuff that we watched when we were kids, the Warner Brothers
Well, that's it.
cartoons, and the Hanna-Barbera cartoons, just the
I
great
learned from all
stuff.
of that.
I did too.
Yeah.
And all the original voiceover artists. I remember coming in and kind of imitating some of those guys and booking gigs.
Yes.
It's like, wow, I guess that's the sound. And then,
I know,
of course, it wasn't.
exactly. I remember especially vividly the Flintstones when I was a little kid, which was an adult show. It was like the cartoon version of the Honeymooners. We had to go to bed. We weren't allowed to watch the Flintstones. I'm really aging myself. Anyway, Fred Flintstone was voiced by this actor, Alan Freed. And
Alan Reed.
Alan Reed. I'm sorry, you're talking about Alan. Anyway, years later, I'm watching Breakfast at Tiffany's, and Audrey Hepburn is going to visit this guy in jail, and suddenly he opens his mouth and he's like, "Thanks, Holly," and it's like it was Fred Flintstone. Horrible imitation.
He's in a Dick Van Dyke episode too.
Oh man, I've got to see that. But I remember hearing his voice with the face made me jump out of my skin. I was like, you know,
it's Fred Flintstone.
It's
but he
Fred
kind of looks a little like Fred
and
Flintstone.
He does kind of look like Fred Flintstone. It was like amazing. But yeah, those shows were inspirational, and those voices
very much
were.
So.
Yeah,
I remember the first time I actually sat and read the credits at the end of a Warner Brothers cartoon, and it said voice characterizations Mel Blanc.
Mel Blanc.
And I wondered where are the other people.
Right.
Yeah, it was just voice characterizations. Yeah.
Right.
But I kept wondering where are the other actors, and I found it was him. Even doing like Granny or whatever.
Oh my God.
Bea Benaderet actually did a couple of voices on some of those too.
Oh sure.
And she was, Betty, and yeah.
Yeah. And then June Foray was Rocky. I'm sorry, I got to throw these names in.
Yeah.
I'm an IMDb junkie. I can't watch an animated film. I have to know who's every voice, right? And it seems to me, and you guys will probably, you've gone through this too, it's like 4 celebrities or people relevant of the time,
right?
And then the same 20 people below for like every damn movie.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It does kind of, it does feel that way. And I mean, more for, I think, actors in LA than New York.
That's what I was thinking.
There's that band of about 30, 40 names, and I'm glad they've got the gigs. And, another thing that has changed in our business is the non-union work, like between celebrities getting exorbitant. And, okay, there's celebrities like a lot of money for stuff, and then non-union performers who are
squeezes out the meat and potatoes actors.
It has. It really has hurt us. And I mean, for anybody that's listening that's not in the union, even though it might seem like an easy buck and, a great way to like learn to do your skill, like there's a reason that the union's there to protect actors from not having to strain their voices or work when you're hurt. And
and pension and insurance.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm so grateful that I'm in SAG-AFTRA, especially when work slowed down and I was able to, take pension and whatnot. It really, it's something a lot of young people might not think about, but in the blink of an eye, it's going to be something that you need. And I appreciate the union being there.
I can't believe that actors actually kind of put that together years ago, because you think of actors as like musicians, sort of not really watching their pennies or being good at that department, but the union actually did a good job.
They sure did.
There's a Facebook group I belong to where it's a lot of people doing a lot of non-union work. There's some union lurkers that are in there. It's a large group of folks, and well-meaning. But it occurred to me over time, like there's a new generation of actors that all they've known is I've got a voice, I bought some gear, I made a demo, and I'm going right to the internet for work for pay-to-play websites.
Right.
And every now and then in that group, people will bitch about a payment or, can you believe it? This company's charging only this much. I'm like,
oh my God.
You don't really have the right to complain, because this was all worked out years ago for your benefit. And
continues being worked out and improved as time goes on.
Yeah. We had the last Mentor Monday was Mason Pettit and Kathy Keene, which was a great night. And
they're great.
They made the point too, and I thought it was a fair point. It's like, not everybody is going to get behind the mic and be in the union right away. Like you may have to do some cheap non-union work just to sort of build up your thing. And I told this story then, and I'll tell it again. There was a young woman I was working with, of color, actually, and she kind of, don't hate me, Nancy, but she reminded me of a young Nancy Giles. She has that sign, no, but she had that delivery, and that's the arc of our career, right? Mason Pettit used to tell the story.
That's so weird to even hear something like that, like a young,
Yeah. But and that's a credit, because she had this amazing voice, and I said, who are you with? And she's like, well, I don't have an agent. I said, well, are you union? She said, no, I'm not. And I was shocked. And right away, I took her reel, she had a few spots together, and sent it to an agent, and they signed her immediately.
Wow.
Which I was happy to hear.
She's probably booking a lot of the things that I've been hearing and going, I did that, and that's not me. But anyway,
Nancy, how many times over the years
are coming out? Yeah.
I feel like every time I see you, Nancy, I'm like, I love your voice on that cartoon. Yeah, that's not me.
It's not me. I
know.
Oh,
I love you on that commercial. No, it's not me.
No, I know.
Yeah, that people have come up to me with that same thing too. Well, there are times when it goes the other way, when I've listened to a commercial and gone and had a weird visceral reaction, going, why does this copy sound familiar? What is it about? And then I realized halfway through, oh my God, that's me.
Right.
And that's happened when it's not even been a fake voice. It's been my own voice. I'm an idiot.
I know. And when it's happened to me too, people are like, oh, that's because you're all over the place. You don't even know what you're recording. I'm like, no, that's not really it. It's just that I'm losing my mind. Is what it is, But I don't begrudge the non-union performers. I understand, trying to start a career, but just the things you're talking about. I mean, I've seen on some of these websites people who say they'll charge like a client $1 a word or something like that. Right. And they'll be paid one flat fee, and there's no guarantee they'll ever get their check. Thank God that we've got the union who will also pay if they'll pay a late fee, they'll pay this, they'll pay residuals, or there's things that are negotiated to guarantee that actors get their due.
And people used to always ask me, how do you get an agent? And in the old days, they had something called, I don't know if they still do, the Ross reports.
Oh, I don't think maybe they do.
Yeah, I remember you go to a bookstore, you get the Ross reports, and you can look up different agencies, and they tell you whether to send a tape in or make a phone call, make an appointment, whatever. Right. And now I don't even know how you find an agent. And
it still exists.
There goes my next question.
It still exists, yes. Ross Reports is now, okay, so there's different things people are writing in and saying. Yeah, I wouldn't even know these days, Chris. I still remember the backstage and show business days.
Right,
Yeah. We're so old.
I know.
No.
You're not old.
I don't care. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, boy, I got started when all the voiceovers were in black and white.
There's another question I wanted to ask here. It's while we were talking about characters a moment ago. Another question from Christina Andretta. How do you develop your characters' unique voices? Does it start from a certain vocal quality or physicality? It's an interesting question for the actors in the room.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like I don't know either. Sometimes the face, it's a funny thing about faces, when people will give you the note, smile when you say it. Things
Right,
you do
that
with your
works.
face, they change how you sound. So
Yes, definitely.
putting up your face and doing things like that, we'll do something, or hunching over. It's really
sometimes
fun.
I'll imitate an odd voice and I'm not necessarily doing an exact imitation, but when I hear an interesting voice, it'll kind of stay in my head. Sometimes if you're doing a cartoon and they give you pictures in advance, that helps, because you can look at something and kind of figure out, well, this guy might sound like this or like this, So.
Right.
I love that.
Clues.
Yeah. There have been, I think, Vanity Fair of all things, they've been running this series of videos where they'll put up a caricature in front of a cartoon voice actor. Some people we all know have done it. I think Bob Bergen did one recently. Sarah Nat and Shenny, who's a bit of a newcomer, and I'm probably not even saying her name right. She's wonderful. Well, they'll look at the cartoon, the little drawing, and they will dial in the character in real time and watch their process. And I love seeing that. Frank Sims, right? You probably know Frank. He'll do that every session. He'll come in and so we're looking for this. He's like, okay, so I'm going to do this guy, but I'm going to do a little bit of this guy, but we want him down here. And he'll just in real time morph until he's got it.
Yeah.
And then go.
Frank is very obsessive that way. I think he's got to slow down on the coffee a little bit.
I know. He is. Chris, you have to tell
guy.
the story. You have to tell the story about face. Oh, because I forgot to mention, Frank, Chris asked me to do this, which I was honored. I am such a fan of his that when I did a piece on Sunday morning about voiceovers, I wanted to have Chris as the featured voiceover guy.
Oh, that's great.
But the story you told me about how you landed Face was really pretty amazing.
Yes.
For Face, I had gone to an audition where they just had some copy. I don't even know if we saw a picture of what Face looked like, but it said doot-de-doo at the end, and I don't know what the other actors were doing. They were just saying doot-de-doo, but I would go, hi. At the original voice I came up with was, I think, something more like Barney or something. It was a little more goofy or something, but I did this kind of a trumpet thing at the end, and they really liked that. And I ended up getting called in to Nickelodeon, and I was sitting at this in his boardroom at this long table at the end. It was, it was kind of like an old Madison Avenue kind of a thing. There were people on either side. They had a little cassette tape recorder that they unplugged and they got it ready. And they had me reading the same copy, and people on one side were liking it. The other side wasn't. I'd read it again. These guys were now liking it. They weren't. And at the very end, they finally said, well, I think we've got enough to work with. And I could see the job going away. And as they're, rolling up the cord on a cassette deck, I went, well, what about this voice? Hey, and I did the Face thing. And everybody went, hey, and they started unraveling the neck again. And I did that. I was sort of thinking of a Dudley Do-Right kind of a yes now thing. I made it a little higher and whatever. Anyway, that became the voice of Face. It was literally the last thing I could think of.
And sometimes that's where the gold is. It's like, oh my God, this job's going away.
So, they were being very polite, and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
It was, but I got it.
I love that story.
And for those in the room that don't know, I'm going to just roll off some of these credits overlap with you guys, but you were on Doug for how many years?
Well, I was not on the Nickelodeon version. I had auditioned for that, but all the good parts were taken at that point.
Right.
So when it got sold over and moved to ABC for Disney's Doug, that's when Billy West decided to move to LA, and he was going to charge too much money, and it was going to be a big chore and whatever. So I ended up doing the voice of Roger Klotz and a bunch of other characters on that. And I had actually worked with Jumbo on another cartoon, because after they did Doug, they did something else called Sports Bender. Hoyt and Andy's Sports Bender. And that we did an entire season of that. And it was ESPN and Sony TV that were coming together on this thing. We did an entire season. We overdubbed and did, just fixed it up. Everything was perfect, ready to go. And at the last minute, they were like, well, it's kind of too kid-like, but then it's also a little too adult-like. These guys are goofball, but they're going out for beers and going to a strip club. And they couldn't figure out what the audio. Now it would work, on Cartoon Network or whatever, but on a number of vehicles. But at the time, they sort of backed off, and it was a whole season of a series that went nowhere. But I got to work with the folks at Jumbo, and when I auditioned for Doug, they actually just called me in, and then I did PB&J Otter because of working with them, and they just brought me in for stuff.
And you guys never overlapped physically recording?
No, but we both did PB&J Otter. We both did Bubble Guppies. And I had a similar story to Chris. I did a really cool series that seemed like it was going to really go places. It was an animated series supposed to be for MTV, I think, called Hey Joel. And writer Joel Snuck. Were you in that too, Chris?
And I know, but I was like floating around that.
Oh man!
But I remember that very well.
Really witty scripts, and I got to play like this high-powered music executive who like hated everybody and was like complaining bitterly, and her character was like thin and tight with these really tightly coiled dreadlocks, and I remember just like whatever. I don't remember anyway, but it was really funny and witty, and somehow between 13 episodes that we did and it going anywhere, it went nowhere. I think they ran in Canada or something like that. And I don't even know if they ran in the States, but it was a really cool, who else was it? Daphne Rubin Vega from Rent. She was in it. She's the only other person I can remember.
Wait a minute. Was that, and that was animated?
Yeah. Yes. Hey Joel.
Maybe I was, you know what? I think I
feel like you were in one of those.
I had a regular character in that that I'm.
See, I know. Isn't it weird?
Oh my God.
I think you were.
Because it did go to Canada.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Remember all that money we made?
Yeah, right.
I know.
I'm just going to quickly throw out a few more things. I want to talk a little bit about promo and I want to talk about video game, but Beavis and Butthead, Chris.
What's that?
Beavis and Butthead.
Oh, well, the way that got started was it was early in my career, and I had booked. I forgot how I auditioned for it, but I ended up booking it, and I did a bunch of episodes. It was like at the very beginning. What happened was I had seen an episode. There was only one episode of Beavis and Butthead. I happened to go to an animation festival, and there was this thing, Frog Baseball.
Yes.
It was very crudely done, and it was, I think, redone for the show. But I remember it kind of being terrible, and I can't believe this story is ridiculous, but I was asked to do a voice on it, and I forget, I never turn down work normally, but I turned it down for some reason. It's like, I don't know, it's not going to go. I don't know what I was thinking. It wasn't like I was rolling in dough or working so much. They called me again, offered me a little more money, and I turned it down again.
Oh my gosh.
And I can't, as I say, I can't believe this story. Anyway, I got this phone call finally from this guy, Abby Turcouli, over at MTV. He was like the head of the animation department, and he called me at home. And I didn't know that he knew who I was, and I couldn't believe that Abby Turcouli is calling me, like, oh my God. So he said, Chris, we really, really want you on this thing. And they offered me a little more money. And I said, sure. And at that point, I guess I wasn't even too sure how much I should be asking for, and everything sort of seemed like, shouldn't it be a lot more? But I don't know. Anyway, so I said, sure. I was flattered that he called me at home. And actually, I started doing the series. Then they said they were going to go non-union. I know. And I had the option of like taking myself out of it, and they changed voice. So I ended up, I guess I shouldn't say this with all these people watching it, but I said, you can keep my voice. And I used my uncle's name on it. And this, as I say, was early on. It was many years ago. And so I was in a bunch of the ones from the first couple of seasons there. Then they came back years later and did it all over again. This time it was union, and I was asked to be in it, of course.
Yeah.
Not of course, but and of course I did it, was what I was going to say. But but it was an awkward situation. It was just, it was early enough on, I guess, and I didn't know how to play it, and I didn't know what to do, and, so...
There's so many cartoons we could talk about. And one of the things I want to just mention too, the very first person I interviewed for my podcast, which again, eventually I will release it, I promise, was Frank Sims, for a lot of reasons. And we talked about him a little earlier, but I realized as you were talking, he's the jingle singer of a million things, but also Saturday TV Funhouse for SNL, which I think you've done a bunch of too, right?
I have done a few of those,
Wow.
Those were great. Robert Smigel was a lot of fun to work with.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
Yeah, he always wanted me to do all Hanna-Barbera type voices and stuff, which was so great because you never get a chance to do those otherwise. But
my goodness.
So I want to talk a little bit about video games because you've each done a bunch of that. And maybe you guys could take turns talking about some of the titles folks in the room might know, and then a little bit about how you fell into those. Is it just traditional voice casting, or how do you book a video game?
For me, it was just voice casting, just auditioning.
Audition. Yeah. I've only done one, unless I'm really spacing out and forgetting, and it was Grand Theft Auto Part 2 or 3.
Yeah, I was in that one too.
Yeah, it was. See, we're all these connections, Chris.
I know. Yeah. You were on the radio on that.
Yes, I was on. I did a couple of different characters. I was on the radio. I was the news person in the car radio.
Right.
I ended up saying something like "Game Over." And then I was also an old woman who was being robbed. Get out of here! Stop it! Get it! Leave my purse alone! Stop! That kind of thing. They just said go over the top, and I did a bunch of different things.
They work you on
really
those.
Fun. Yeah,
I was 3 characters on that as well. I was El Burro. He was on the cover of that. He was the big bald guy. And this guy Marty Chunks. There were characters that you didn't see, but you'd hear them on the phone or whatever.
Right.
And you would have a scenario, and I did something else called Mafia, and there was another one that I did named after a guy, and I'm totally blanking on his name, but you had to have different scenarios. So you would kill people, you would get killed, you'd be tortured, you'd be screaming, you'd throw your voice out
Yeah,
these sessions.
that was, I remember, that was rough. And
Yeah.
and it was rough, and I think it damaged my voice a little bit. And it was especially gory, that series, like the murders and the blood and whatnot. And it was, I was kind of embarrassed afterwards about doing it. And then when I moved, I live in Weehawken, New Jersey now, and some little kid I was talking to said something about cartoons or something, and I said, well, I do this voice on Grand Theft Auto, and they were, really? And then I became like the hit of the town with the little kid.
I was in Max Payne, and they ended up making a movie of that.
Max Payne, that's
the blood and gore.
Yeah, I know, but it's pretty violent, and
it was really violent.
But you know what? I've gotten a bunch of these games, and I'm not very good at them, so I always get killed before my characters come up. So I've never seen I had to go on YouTube and watch the playthroughs or watch certain characters so I can. Oh, that's what that looked like.
That's another whole world. Like, my video game world, I'm still like Tetris. I'm happy playing Tetris.
Exactly.
I can't commit months to playing a game through like that.
I'm telling you, it's tough.
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I wanted to rattle off some of the other things for Nancy too. I kind of showed a little slideshow, but some people weren't really even here yet when I did that at the head, just sort of showing your work. But the movie Big, which I always love teasing Nancy about because I was so giddy when I saw your name in the credits and realized that was you. But here's
I didn't know you were in that.
I had a little part in Big.
But here's a little career overlap, which you probably already know already. I'm sure we've talked about it. But where you filmed those scenes is Bozell Advertising.
Really?
That building with those big columns.
Yeah.
And all that, that's the building they used for the office interiors for the toy company in Big.
Oh, that's
on 23rd Street.
That's where Bozell, that's right.
Yeah.
That's where Bozell used to be. Oh my goodness.
They knew that. That's why they brought you in for the New York Times. But you mentioned the Jay Thomas radio show.
Yes, yes.
Cool.
The late great Jay Thomas. I tell you, I've had a lot of gigs, but I love that. As a New York kid growing up on radio, when AM radio played like Barry White right next to Barry Manilow, and you'd hear everything. I mean, why else would I love a song like Wichita Lineman? I mean, they played everything. And so somebody like me that grew up on radio, and I grew up listening to Jay. He used to be a DJ on a station called 99X back in the 70s. And he left because he got cast on Mork and Mindy.
You're right.
So it was one of those serendipitous things where he had been hired for what was then a soul oldies station, and he knew
It was a great station.
It was. We don't have anything like that anymore.
I know. It was really terrific.
It was fun.
Stuff from the 70s. It was.
Yeah, we got to.
And you had a great segment on there called Nancy Sings the News.
I can't believe you remember. Yes.
Oh my God! Yes. I think I have a CD of that somewhere.
I think I gave you a CD because you were so nice about it. But yeah,
I was a fan.
Did these song parodies of current events with soul oldies, and it was really lots of fun. I really loved that. And then we all got fired. They changed the format of the show, and that was it.
Yeah. And then True Crime.
Right. That's
and Dennis Leary was in that, so it's a little more.
He was, but we didn't work together. But yeah, that was just a tiny part, as Clint Eastwood said. And I'm staring at a picture I have of me standing next to him because he was wonderful. This was all when he was talking to the chair at that convention a while back. But he's one of the best people one of the biggest stars I ever met. He could not have been nicer. And there was a part in the end of the script where I thought my character would probably be there because I was the lawyer of the guy that was condemned to die. And I said to him, I read through the whole script, and that scene, this is so actor greedily, there's a scene where he's in the gas chamber, and I couldn't understand why his lawyer wasn't there. And he said, I'll think about that. And then they brought me back for that. And he said, you were right. You're absolutely right.
Wow.
You in there. Yeah, he was great. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I know. I'm very fortunate. I work with some great people.
And how did China Beach happen for you?
So I was doing a show at Manhattan Theater Club, and it was one of those once in a lifetime things where it was an ensemble show it was at, anyway, there were all these little plays written by famous playwrights and music written by Maltby and Shire, a famous composer, lyricist duo. and I got a fabulous review from Frank Rich. It was like unexpected, and he, said great things, and a lot of people came to town to try to see it, but it was a limited run, and the guy who was casting China Beach wasn't able to see it, but there was a writer's strike that year, and so they came into town later in the summer just to meet people. And I swear to God, I don't think I would have gotten China Beach had I had to read scenes from a script. There's something about TV scripts and film scripts. I kind of stink. I honestly do. I just, too many times, there's too many factors. Like, this is a true story. I auditioned once for a Star Trek-like series where my character was the commander, and she was on the phone yelling at a subordinate, talking to somebody in her office, and breastfeeding at the same time. That's the way they wrote it. So I was like, I told you that's not right. Stand right there. Here, It's horrible. It was horrible. But luckily with China Beach, they just wanted me to talk, and I just talked, and they filmed it, and I met him again. Great. And then they wrote some stuff around what I said, and I ended up doing that character of Frankie, which I loved.
That's great.
Yeah. Thanks, Frank. You did all this research.
I did. I'm a listener. I try not to have these things go on and on because between the two of you guys, like I said, each of you could fill an episode easily. And this is really more about the Mentor Monday. And are you cool with sticking around for a few more minutes? Maybe take a few questions from the room?
Sure. Anybody wants to ask? How long have we been here? 3 hours? How long have we been? No.
No. It's just, I can't believe time flew. Yeah. But I would love to take it. If anybody's got questions in the room, they want to throw your hand up, I'll call on you and we can talk. And you guys just, tap me on the shoulder when you've had enough. And because I know sometimes these things go on late and I try to curb it. But I see Diana Dudley. Is that a hand going up? All right. I'm going to unmute you. There you go.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Had a great evening. I've really been enjoying listening to you, Chris and Nancy, and of course, Frank. And it's my first Mentor Monday, so I really appreciate the invite. My question has to do, Nancy, with something with the conversation we had earlier today about expectations for African-American voiceover artists. So I get, I don't know how many times a day I get audition requests specifically for an African-American female. What are they looking for? Or what are they expecting to get? Are they?
You kind of know what they're expecting. But I really do feel like it's broadening a little bit because Michelle Obama is an African-American female who sounds a certain way.
Yep.
Kerry Washington is an African-American female who sounds a different way. Monique is an African-American woman who sounds different. Right. So I believe it's broadening. But when I started, that always meant, kind of sass it up and that kind of stuff.
It's still happening now.
I know. Well, look, here's what you do. You just, you do this while you're, just try not to be offended. I was offended for a long time, and just try to treat it as another character. But believe me when I tell you, it's slowly beginning to broaden. It's not as on the nose stereotypical as it used to be. Because what's nice is, some people know me and they know my voice and they know I'm Black and they know this is how I sound. Right. So that can be proof of an African-American woman. I know it sounds insane, but I've been there.
You can also do multiple reads where you do one a little more street and then one a little more like normal.
Like you or whatever,
Because I do that too. When they'll ask for character voices, sometimes I think, well, let me just throw in me or throw in something a little more. And I've booked that because I did that.
So that would be acting on my part because that's not me.
Right, exactly.
But that's a great note, Chris. And I would say, you can try to think of it as different like layers of you, like you on low, you on medium, you on high.
Right.
And just experiment with that. But it is that way, but it's changing. Please believe me.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, good luck to you.
Yes.
Now we're going to go over to Jimmy. He's got his hand up. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Hey, what's up? I don't really have a question. I just wanted to say hey to Chris. How are you?
Jimmy, all right. Good to see you, pal.
Thank you so much for all you've done for me in the past, Chris. You've been my mentor on this journey.
Oh, well, you're a great guy, Jimmy.
Oh, Jimmy, what a
Thank
nice
you.
guy.
Nancy, you're great too.
Oh, thanks.
And Frank, thank you so much for doing this. I mean, this isn't a question. I just wanted to say hey, and that's it. Now for a real question from somebody. Thank you so much.
What a
Thanks,
pal, what a pal,
Jimmy.
what a pal.
Oh, he's a sweetheart.
I saw some other hands up, but I can't find.
Frank, somebody asked what mic you were using. One of those, something flashed on my screen. I didn't see the name.
So I'm using the Rode NT1A. Now I use it for me because it's a $229 microphone. I keep, for when actors come over, when the real people come over, I've got my U87, got my 416. I don't leave them out because I know they'll get broken if I do. So for $229, I love this mic. And actually, completely unrelated, a lot of people that I've been working with one-on-one consulting in lockdown, I've recommended the Stellar X2 microphone, which is,
I'm using that for this, as a matter of fact, right?
And
now.
I love it so much. So I just got a call from Pro Sound News, who I freelance write for. Yeah, and we were talking about an article I'm going to write, and I talked about all the mics, and I mentioned TechZone Stellar X2, and the editor said, they've been reaching out to us, and I've been dismissing them because I've never heard of them. I said, it's fantastic. So they're shipping me one to review for Pro Sound News, and I can't wait because I really love that mic. So
yeah,
it's the Rode NT1A, which I really enjoy. I'm not a voice actor, God knows.
But he gets plenty of airtime.
Yeah, I've been doing webinars once or twice a week since the middle of March. And, because I just don't want to watch the news.
Frank, a lady named Laura said Rode is all sold out, but she said also you sound delicious.
I sound delicious.
That's what she said. Laura
I always
Summer.
feel like I sound like Ralph Macchio's lesser intelligent cousin.
No.
But Chris, you sound great. And somebody had their, Sean has his hand up. Go ahead, Sean.
Oh, thanks. Hi, everyone. Very nice to meet you, Chris and Nancy, by
Nice to meet you,
Zoom. Yeah, it's a great conversation. Could you share with us if you've any specific physical warm-up routines that you might, ritualistically do before a session, specifically if you don't have too much time to warm up?
Well, Chris is big on calisthenics. We always have to carve out a half hour before we get in the booth.
Which can be a little rough at the audition.
Yeah, but it's fun to watch. It's really fun to watch.
Clear the tables and chairs. No, usually I'll just try to, clear my throat. And,
I was going to say the same thing.
Right. If I can read a script kind of out loud just to say the words, that helps before I go in. If I'm seeing it for the first time, just to get my mouth around them, because sometimes copy will look easy enough to read, but once you say it, it's like, oh my God, I can't see these words together. And
It's
blah,
true.
blah, blah, blah.
It's true.
So it's a good practice to at least try to say it out loud, even if it's quietly.
I'll tell you one thing. I don't drink that much, but if I drink the night before a gig, it's troublesome because I wake up and my voice feels like I'm talking through like a cotton ball. It's weird. So I don't do any of that stuff, and I, like Chris, clear my throat. And then if I'm having throat problems, Luden's, the cheap version of a nice lozenge is the Luden's honey licorice cough drops. Wait, I have some right here. Sponsored by Luden's.
There you go.
The more expensive kind are these ones called Grethers pastilles that also really help because they have
Those are great.
glycerin. And you should avoid menthol. Don't use any menthol cough drop if possible.
And apparently, if you have dry mouth, apple juice, I guess is supposed to be good or something.
Oh, that's good. I never knew that.
I do classes on the RX elements and those isotope plugins to remove mouth noise, but nothing works better than a green apple or apple juice. That's How do you not know that, Nancy?
I don't know, and I have a noisy mouth. People are always saying, "What's going on?" Yeah. I'm like, I don't know.
The green apple thing.
What's the problem?
I remember when I first started at Nutmeg, every booth had throat spray and like these toothpick things and all these things for actors. And then like a sign of the times is when those all started to kind of go away, and I had to and actually we were talking about Alec Baldwin earlier, and of course this won't make air ever, but he came in for a session. He used to come in weekly for the NFL stuff he would do for HBO, and every time he came in, the bottle of the throat spray would vanish after he left. He would just take it with him.
Can you say kleptomaniac? No. Oh dear.
Cheap.
I'm going to jump over to Susie, who's got a question. Go ahead, Susie.
Oh, hi. I'm still trying to get these beautiful children of mine to bed, and they're like throwing at each other. Hi. I have a question about auditioning. And I put in the chat about this audition I had a few years ago for Pinkalicious, and it was a callback, and there was a camera room, and I was too, like, I didn't want to seem green and be like, why is there a camera here? Why would there be a camera at an animation voiceover audition? Is that for mocap or what?
It could be for motion capture.
I can answer that.
Sometimes. Yeah. I mean, I've been to auditions where they only had a camera. They didn't have an audio setup.
Right.
I do voices for Pinkalicious, funny enough, as well, by the way.
You got her gig, is what you're saying.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this.
I hear the similarity in our voices.
Wait, who do you play, Chris?
Various characters, but Mr. Crunk is a reoccurring character, and animals. Whenever there are sheep, cats, dogs, for some reason I've done a lot of that.
Mom, but I don't know. I was also 5 days postpartum. I feel like they thought I was pregnant. I don't know, but I wasn't. I didn't want to say that I was 5 days postpartum. You know, an actor does anything to get the job.
I know.
Well, it depends on the character you're going for too.
Right, but sometimes information like that can work against you. But yeah,
right.
But how cool that you were there that soon after having a baby. Rock on.
I'll tell you too about the camera thing. Protocol for Disney, and mostly for Disney. They videoed the faces of actors forever. In fact, back at Nutmeg, we would actually record you to the Pro Tools and to a DAT, and then also to a Digibeta with your face, and we would ship it to them. Then that evolved to a time-coded QuickTime file, because they when you're doing features, probably not so much cartoons, they'll use your facial expressions with your read to inform their drawing. A great example of that, I mentioned it earlier, is the movie Planes. But the problem was, and I won't say the actor, because if I use the story, I don't want to get in trouble. There was an actor that had recorded the main part for the entire film. He would, months and a year working on it, and animation and the rest of it. And then I was doing some pickup sessions with a couple of different sports announcers toward the very end of the recording the movie. And they sent some files to reference and play the scenes. And there was this totally different voice for the main character. It ended up being 3 months before the movie came out, they had Dane Cook come in and revoice the entire thing.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
But the drawing of the airplane's face was all based on the original actor. And it was, I went and saw it with my daughter in a theater, and to me the movie just was a flop. I just looked, because having heard it one way for years, and then Dane Cook, and there was an innocence to the original actor. The premise is it's a plane that's afraid of heights, right? And the whole thing was he was timid, and then Dane Cook is all bravado, and it's like, how is this even? So I don't know what happened, but throughout that process, every actor was video captured so they could inform the drawing.
Well, that reminds me of a heartbreaker on my end, which was there was an animated feature that I was cast the female lead when I was living in California. It was called Cats Don't Dance. And it was an incredible script that was really about breaking stereotypes and stuff. And I was so stoked. And I can't remember who. I think Scott Bakula was going to play the male lead. And we started laying down tracks alone, not in rooms or anything like that. And then at some point I remember hearing that Natalie Cole was going to be my singing voice.
Wow.
And I started getting very worried, and that Randy Newman was writing the music. I heard Randy Newman was writing the music. I was like, oh my God. And then I heard Natalie Cole was going to be my singing voice. And I thought, uh-oh, that's bad. And within a couple of weeks, I laid down tracks for months.
No.
I was gone, Natalie Cole was in, and they gave me my tracks to use as guide tracks. So, heartbreak.
Wow.
Sorry.
Well, I when they made the Beavis and Butthead movie, they had called me in to do voices on that. And I had 3 characters, and I was replaced by celebrities for everyone.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I had Brendan Fraser in for a cartoon record, and the first thing he said to the directors was, I'm always nervous because I come in for these jobs all the time, and I always end up getting replaced. And 10 lines into it, they paused and they were saying something. He's like, "Everything okay there?" So I had to talk back and said, "Brendan, they just alerted us they're replacing you with." And at least the joke landed. Because
Oh my
it could have gone either way.
Oh, gee.
Any other questions in the room for these guys? I see a hand up. Go ahead, Ariel.
Yeah.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
Hello.
Thank you for Chris and Nancy for this wonderful evening. I had a question about auditioning for commercials for TV versus radio, because I was told, I come from the theater, I'm a Broadway actress, and I have a pretty sing-songy voice and expressive voice. I was told by my agent, who's actually Stephen Arcieri, he told me that my voice can be a little too up and down, and I need to make it, just a little more like a regular person. So I've been trying to do that, but I wonder if it's TV versus radio auditions, whether there's a difference in the expression and energy of your auditions and your performances.
Are you talking just about
because
you're talking about
because there's a
voiceovers,
video,
right?
Yeah, but I'm wondering, like, because there's a video element to a TV commercial, does that make your performance of the voiceover? Would that affect your performance of the voiceover, knowing that there's a TV
necessarily so, because I've done some TV spots where they've had radio spots as well. So you're doing that same voice that they booked you on for the TV,
right?
But that's an interesting question, though.
Yeah, I mean,
it sort of seems like it would be, because it's all audio as opposed to any kind of visual. But I don't think so necessarily.
It also depends on when you're doing a voiceover for a television commercial, if they have the video elements ready, because sometimes you're reading to storyboards or animatrix, whatever they call those, or even just stills. So if I'm doing a TV voiceover and they have the video, it can sometimes help inform me about how I want to, what mood I want to take or something like that. Or if the music is there, that might lead me in a certain way. But it's, but if without that, it's sort of the same approach, I think, for a voiceover, TV voiceover and a radio. That I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's accurate.
And I think your voice sounds great. I don't think it's too sing-songy or anything.
Me neither.
I'm gonna talk to that Stephen Arcieri.
Fuck Steve Arcieri.
Thank you.
What the hell? You sound great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Now, Chris, I'm about to take a question from Ralph Gardner. Ralph is the guy who's got the actual voice that you've probably been hired to imitate a million times. Let's say hi to Ralph.
Oh my God.
Oh, well, hello.
Hey.
I had to do that a little bit,
Hey, baby.
Hey, baby. Or is it? Oh, yeah.
Oh, God, yeah.
Well, great to meet you folks. This has been highly enjoyable, and it's been a long time coming here. I've been kind of bantering back with Frank. He's been incredibly helpful. Thank you, Frank.
Sure.
He's a great guy.
He is great.
He is. Well, you're all sweet people, and it's been really something here as I'm starting to kind of dance a little more, and as far as getting gigs, and Frank and I were just talking about one I did do. It's that apparently it's going to be a little traveling show. Remember I spoke to you about that?
Yeah, for those who don't know, probably the foremost commercial director who's also now film director and everything else, this guy named Brian Buckley. I don't know if you've had the privilege of encountering him. He's just a genius, always has been. Look him up. Every Super Bowl spot, every award-winning, he's just like the rock star. So Ralph just emailed me about this thing he did that, of all people, was directed by Brian Buckley. It's this like political thing. Big pro-Trump rally. No, I'm just kidding. I think it's I think he's going state to state, doing these sort of political let's course correct type pieces.
Right. It's called Ode to Putin.
Nancy, I recommend you reach out to Brian Buckley and feature this on Sunday morning.
That sounds so cool.
Well, he did it first time in Washington, D.C., and then, of course, here in Portland. And there will be other cities that he's targeted, but he's being rather, a little quiet about when and exactly where that will be. But
I wonder if he's going to come to D.C. They're supposed to be doing a big, like another March on Washington, I think, at the end of the month. So,
well, who knows? But they had the characters painted in gold. and this car was painted in gold. So it's very Trumpian, garish, if you will. It was a great. It was just great. It was awesome.
Boy.
But what I wanted to ask, and it's always a good question, I think, for anybody, and I think you were, Nancy, you were saying a couple of things that were very informative. What informs you? What helps you to find that character voice, And that's something I'm not as experienced in as I'd like to be, but I have a lot of fun doing them. You should hear my son. He's just really crazy, but that's besides.
No,
Anyway.
you know what? Something like listening to your son, or Chris and I were both saying how inspired we were by the Warner Brothers and the Hanna-Barbera cartoons. It can sometimes be taking a kernel of something there and going in a far direction.
Exactly.
I've come up
Or
with
people
voices.
I know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Doing
Okay.
imitations. I mean, I remember once overhearing these ladies at a eatery on the Upper West Side saying something like, "I love San Cappuccino." It was something weird, like that. And I was like, "Oh, I want to remember that."
Exactly.
And you sort of file these things away, and it's all. I mean, we're like little noise thieves. We're little vocal thieves. You take a little and wash it around and spit out stuff. So
In other words, we plagiarize other people.
I figure I go after dead celebrities from the 20s, and none of the producers will recognize the voices.
Well, it's interesting too, Chris, because I would say even what Paul Frees did for Boo Berry, for example, that's kind of a
it's Peter Lorre.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's right.
So we are
It's
just
the same
stealing dead
voice.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, that's him. But all those voices, there was Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff, and Peter Lorre for those characters.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
True.
But it's funny, there are a lot of young producers out now that don't know any of those characters, so it's
It's amazing. It's
Playing on a Basil Rathbone. You remember him?
Of course.
Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one area where being older, it really comes in handy because we've got a huge frame of reference.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
There's nothing more
old,
fun than
yes.
being in an ad session with a room full of clients and you drop some kind of a joke based on an old show and nobody knows what the hell you're talking about.
Oh my God, that's so sad.
Been there.
Yeah. It's like on that old episode of blah, blah, blah. And people are like, what now? It's like, yeah, never mind.
No, forget it.
Well, this has been great. If we have time for one more question, if anybody has one. I see Mike has a hand up. Go ahead, Mike.
Hi, Nancy. Hi, Chris. Hi, Frank.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
My question is regarding something we were just talking about, characters, specifically impressions. I was asked once to do the voice of Elroy Jetson for a game, and Dawes Butler, who originally did the voice, is no longer with us.
Right.
Have either of you ever been asked to do an impression of an existing character or someone well-known? If so, how did you get there? How did you get to the point where you were doing the voice accurately?
Well, one instance for me was on that cartoon Doug. After Billy West decided to leave, I had to imitate one of his characters. So I would just listen to it and go, "Hey, funny, what do you think you're doing?" Just something way up in. It was a harder one to get, but hey, way up in there, so practice. And I'll get those I don't know if you get those as much, Nancy, but
just a few times. I mean, I had to, and I don't think I can replicate it, but I had to do Whoopi Goldberg, who has this very flat way of talking
Right.
about stuff like that. And then another time, and that one I actually got, but I thought I did a really good Oprah for something, and everyone gets a car or whatever, but I didn't get it. But it's what Chris was saying, listening and repeating, and some people have a natural gift for that kind of thing.
yeah, with me, it's hit and miss. Sometimes I'm in that pocket and sometimes forget it.
Yeah. I mean, I can do Shirley Chisholm, but people don't really know her like they should.
Right, yeah.
I'm standing here in front of the Statue of Liberty, but yeah, so.
I'm old enough to get it. So.
Thank you.
Well, this has been really great. I mean, I feel like I could talk to you guys all night. Maybe we'll do it again. I know I would love to follow up more because there's so much more than we even got to with your careers and just general chat. And so we could do this all night, but I know eventually we have to go to sleep.
This has
Well,
been
thanks so much for having us.
Thank you guys
Thank
again so
you.
much for doing it. And thank
Thanks,
everyone else for
everybody.
your questions.
Thank you. We're going to win an award for this. I know it, Chris.
Yeah,
By the way,
this time for sure.
That's right.
If everybody
You'll
looks
tell
under
us.
their chair at home right now, everybody's got nothing.
Dust bunny.
This has been really great.
Thanks to everybody that was listening and submitted questions
you.
and everything. Oh, Inga.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Inga. Thanks. That's nice.
This has been
That's
great.
the
Thank you
everybody.
guys
Oh,
so much. And we will
thank
talk
you.
soon.
Okay.
Have a
Thanks,
great night,
guys.
everybody.
Bye, Frank. Mwah,
Bye.
everybody.
Mwah. Right back at you.
Be good. Stay safe.
Okay.
Hey.